chat. It is now live. We are live. Hello, Cookie. You were a bit early, that's all. 7 minutes early. So, welcome to the first ever Patreon live chat to our wonderful patrons who've supported us. And thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate all your support. And we've got a bit of a surprise that's going to happen a little bit later in the chat. And we did promise you to get to see behind the scenes stuff that other people are not going to get to view. It's not going to be available to the public on YouTube. Now, as you might have figured out, that this is a private link, so it's an undisclosed link. So unless you are on Patreon and you can see that link, no one else is on it. Hello, Mrs. Zero. Hello, Cookie. Now, as I said, we've got something special planned for you a little bit later, and in this live video, and we're going to be releasing a creature. Oh, yay! I wonder which creature that could be. Now, of course, I understand that due to time zones and stuff like that, that not always will people be able to join us live. Hello, Mrs. Zero. We will make this available non-live as well to our Patreon viewers for the people who haven't been able to join us live due to work commitments. We understand that you can't always be there. We would love it if you were, but we do understand that sometimes it's not going to be possible because life happens, and that it does. And I'm hoping we get some visitors to come join us. Normally it's Warthog, sometimes Impala, sometimes Kudu, come gate crash our live chat. So yeah, let's see. So if anyone's got any questions, I see there's only 7 of us. Oh dear. No, 8 of us now. Feel free to ask now. And while we're waiting for some questions to come through, what I'll do is give you an update on the Badger, Shinzele. Cookie. Well, thank you, Cookie. We appreciate the fact that you pulled off the road to watch. So the Badger had a full service this weekend, and that's why you haven't seen much stuff coming from us. With the help of a mechanic, Wiem and I have been stuck inside that car. We've stripped the carburetor, redid the needle seat, put new gaskets, replaced the oil seal on the front crank. It was leaking oil out of the engine. Replaced all the oil in the diffs and in the engine itself. Gave the full engine a good clean, new filters, the works. So she is purring at the moment. However, there were still some problems that we were unable to fix just due to our, well, there's only so much we can do at home. So she's gone into a tire place, and she has one front broken spring, which will be being replaced, and she needs a new tires. And there was no spare tire, so you can't go out in the bush without a spare tire. So we've decided to do that. Devin would like to know, when is the Badger going to get the electric safari vehicle company treatment? Hopefully one day. That is the plan. We are still working with electric safari vehicles on a bigger project that's going to take a little bit longer to get through. So we are still hoping to be the only film crew in the world we know that uses electric vehicles. But again, that's a long-term project that we're working on, and of course they're quite expensive. Oh, there we go. Hi, JB. Oh, sorry about that. We're still learning about how best to do this, but we will figure it out. So we will figure it out so everyone can chat and access easily. And yeah, so as I said, so Badger's getting new front springs, leaf springs, on the one side. So we're hoping that the Badger will be up and running and not quite finished, but it'll be ready to be used for filming by Friday, is our hope. So unfortunately, tomorrow, for those of you who are not from South Africa and don't know, tomorrow is our national elections. So workshops, obviously, there's nothing going to be open tomorrow. because people are going to be voting. So the badger will take a little bit of time. We took it in early this morning, and they need to order the right spring, and then the spring needs to come from Zanin, which is a town not too far from here, probably about 100 kilometers to our north. Cookie, I'm not sure how to make one-time additional donations. We're still figuring out all this stuff. We did, Devin, we did tweet, I think I did tweet about the times. I might have got it wrong. As I said, we're still learning, and we're busy working on some interesting projects as well. A lot of the stuff we've been working on, apart from doing our admin, which has been... I hate doing spreadsheets and accounting, but it's one of those things that has to be done. But we're working on some long-term projects that will be able to sort of really expand PaintedDog.tv, bring in, as you said, one of the main reasons we started Patreon was to hopefully at a later stage bring in a full second camera crew, which will enable us to operate at both our areas at the same time. And next week I will introduce everyone to a guy called Lucky. He's a guy I've known around Hoedspruit, a young man, well, 26, 27, and he's been working as a stills photographer and a journalist for the local newspaper. He's from the local community, and we are going to give him a shot to become VM's camera assistant. So you might be seeing a bit of Lucky. So he'll be on a probationary period for a little bit, and what that'll mean is that having a third person on the badger means we will definitely be able to get a lot more behind the scenes footage and stuff like that with two of us is just not possible. We do try. I do the long arm of the camera. Fortunately, my arms are quite long, so that does work from time to time. But yeah, so that's the plan. So we'll be trialing Lucky on a temporary basis as a camera assistant for VM. Hopefully, I'm really hoping he works out. He's a really hard-working guy, and he actually has been sort of harassing me. Yes, the badger is big enough for 3 people. There we go, Tanya, which is VM's sister. Hello, Tanya. Says she misses her little brother. Her little brother doesn't like being on camera too much, but we will maybe go visit him in the office shortly, so we can say hello to VM. And I know he's probably watching this and listening in the office, which is just behind me here. JC, Bucket. As far as we know, Bucket is well. The latest den site is inaccessible to all vehicles and is very, very thick. And we have made the choice not to walk into that den site for now. Rather let her settle. But no news is good news on that front. And the lioness keeps going back into the same place. So we're hoping that she's good. And as soon as the badger's up and running, we're going to actually see if the badger might be able to get into that area, just because it's so much smaller. Cookie, what happened to Scar? If you referring to Scar in the Mara, I heard he was still knocking about. But what I can do is actually find out. I'll send my friend Adam Bannister, who works at Ngama Mara, a message to see if he's got any updates. But to be honest, I haven't been following too much of the lions and stuff in the Mara. Thank you so much, JB. Yeah, we're excited to share the evolution of PaintedDog.tv with you, and yeah, we're planning some stuff. So, and obviously, it always takes time to get all these things done. Please do an episode with Jamie from Mrs. Zero. That would be a little bit difficult because, of course, she still works for Safari Live, and she wouldn't be able to actually do an episode with us at the moment. Stephen, will the badger be able to keep up with wild dogs? Of course it will. It's a very small car with a 1600 engine in it, twin cam engine in it. It should be able to keep up with wild dogs, no problem, providing they don't run into too much thick bush. So yes, it should definitely be able to keep up with the wild dogs. I thought it was monkeys alarming. However, it sounds like children on bicycles. So we've had actually really strange weather. It was actually raining this morning, and I had to drive the badger through town. which is quite the adventure. So VM goes up ahead to make sure there's no policemen, because the Badger is not exactly street legal. It's got no indicators, no hooter, no mirrors. Hi Betty, yes, you haven't missed too much, just about 10 minutes, a little late. But as I said, you can watch it from the beginning. We'll make sure that there is a link for those who missed it due to work or other commitments. You will be able to watch it back. But of course, chatting live is better. And for those who are a bit late, we have a surprise later. That's going to happen a little bit later in this video. We're going to go see Wiem for Tanya, because Viem's sister is watching. And she says she misses her little brother, so we're going to go take a walk into the office and see what VMP is up to, and then we're going to come back for a special release, and I'm going to leave it at that. So should we go take a wander and see where VM is? Maybe the warthogs will come out while we go see VM. Oh, actually, before we go, we've got a very cool little thing around here. And it's not something I've seen too often, but this is a knobthorn tree, and if you have a look there, there's dung, and there's actually 2 tiny baby dwarf mongoose inside that tree that the parents have left, and the whole so they might be born in the last day or two, that they've been left in there, and that's right in the garden, so that's very cool. We've been putting up cameras on these dwarf mongoose quite a bit, so we're hoping to get some good stuff out of them, and especially in the days when we're stuck in the office and editing, it's quite nice to be able to go outside and go play with some dwarf mongooses, or at least just see them. Okay, we're going to go through the house quickly. We can just have a look quickly there. So there is a kudu. These are all my photographs. Up there is a bushbuck horns from our old family farm. Those horns are probably over 60 years old. They're a family heirloom. And then Maasai beads. And then over here, so those of you who watched Faulty Towers might know about the moose. Jamie calls that my moose. Oh, there's quarantine over there. Ooh, well, I don't know how this works. Well, that leopard is quarantine, but that buffalo died during the drought at Djuma, and I got special permission from Yuri and Pippa to take the buffalo horns home, and now I've mounted them. But Jamie wouldn't let me just have horns on the wall. She doesn't want a wall of death, she says. But so you can see, it's decorated with Maasai beads. Bob, I don't really sell my photos. I use them for promotional stuff. And talking about a wall of death, this was actually killed by the Leadwood boys. There you go, wildebeest. The contrast between your work life and mine is refreshed, changed. Thanks for making it available to our pleasure, Paddy. JB, yes, they do nest in trees and stuff. It just depends on the availability of termite mounds. So in other parts of this little estate where we live, there are good termite mounds for them to live in. But around here, there are not so many termite mounds, so they use fallen trees or hollow trees. I saw another. JC, we do not have any elephants where I live. The only sort of big animals we get through here, we've got kudu, wildebeest, giraffe, but we don't have any elephants. But Leadwood will be getting elephants shortly, and we're going to be opening up a new area in the next couple of weeks in the Timbavati, so that's going to be our elephant area. How do I keep the moths from getting into those horns? A little trick. So I used to do a lot of painting, a lot of artwork. Too busy these days. So the trick is lacquer spray that you use for when you're doing chalk drawings and things like that. You just do a light spraying over there, and that stops the fish moths from getting into the horns. Hello, Becky. Hello, Betty. Okay, so I can see VM watching me. VM, you got to say hello to your sister. Okay, we're going to turn it around. Sorry, the office is a bit of a mess, but there we go. Say hi, Vim.
What's up, people?
What's up, people?
Hello,
There we go. There we go. And you can see Vim's working space a lot more tidy than Brent's working space. What else? All right, apart from the fact that we're always watched by our giraffe. we've got 2 giraffe on the table there. And then, so often we keep these curtains closed, obviously, while we're editing and stuff like that. But when we're not editing, we open this up, and you often have lots of different animals and really nice birds, actually, right outside the window. Okay. Billy loves the giraffe. Well, thanks, Billy. Well, we'll let Vim hide in the office for a bit longer. Vim, bye, Vim. What else can we show you? Oh yes, I'm in the process of starting a little vegetable herb garden. And aloes I've got to plant. Oh, sorry, I've got this the wrong way. Let me do this quickly. So there we go. So this used to be a horrible piece of concrete that we smashed out. So there's my first herbs. We've got some basil and some thyme and some sage. And these are aloes. These are really cool. So these are called krantz aloes. They grow up in the mountains here. And when we first moved into the house, it's one of the first things I planted. And the main reason I love having these around, especially at this time of the year, is because the flowers are coming and you get the most exquisite sunbirds. So almost all my big aloes are about to flower. JB, that's a really good question. I'll get back to that in a second. How do fence reserves keep everything from getting depleted? Not sure how it all works. Tanya, fishing rods, yes. Wherever I go, there's fishing rods. So, yes. So those are actually just, there's a little dam inside our estate here that I go fishing. But my true joy when it comes to fishing is actually fly fishing. And what I'll do. So on the occasion that I take a break and decide to watch some telly or whatnot, while I watch telly, you have my whole fly tying set up. Oh, and my chili sauce. That was obviously from having a snack. But there we go. So my fly tying vise, all my flies, and we're busy trying to figure out how to catch a nearly impossible fish at the moment called a low fault large scale yellowfish, which is endemic to rivers in the eastern part of South Africa, under 600 meters above sea level, and they're one of the hardest things to catch. So my mom is actually she's a South African fisherman. She's got her colors. So we've been busy trying to figure out how to catch these fish. Let me just go back. Let me sit down so I can get your questions. Well, Betty, not a drought. It's just been a low rainfall year, but backed on the fact that there has been a very bad rainfall for the last couple of years. But it's not really a drought. It's actually a decent rainfall, about 300 mils or just under 300 mils a year. It's almost, some people call it a green drought. And that means that there has been normal rainfall, and in normal circumstances that rainfall would have been enough to fill up all the water holes and etc. But because we've been dry for sort of 3 or 4 years, the water table has been depleted. So the underground water resources and stuff like that. So what's happening is, even though it's raining, areas that would have held water for longer periods are not holding water because the whole water table is much lower than it is normally. Now, it is not unnatural, droughts and dry cycles. We had a very wet cycle up until about 4 or 5 years ago, and on average it's about 7 to 8 years per cycle. So you'll have a very wet period and a very dry period, although it's very difficult to say when it comes to weather. It's that old Hemingway quote: 2 things one should never predict: the weather and a woman's moods. So okay, let's see what there was. I'm going to get to JB's question. JB's question: how do closed fenced-in reserves keep all the resources from getting depleted? I'm not sure how it all works. Well, it is a bit of a challenge. So what normally happens, so I'm just trying to find a way to sit this down without causing pandemonium. Dear, you know what? We're in the bush. Use a rock. Is that going to work? Maybe we need more rocks. A bigger rock. There we go. Bigger rock. There we go. Bigger rocks. So what happens is that you will do something called, oh, now I can't even remember what it's called properly. Basically, in layman's terms, it's a fault assessment. So you will assess the types of grasses, trees, etc., soil types being the most important, and then you'll work out a carrying capacity. So basically, depending on what type of grasses, what quality of grasses and trees, depending on whether what you're working for, browsers or grazers, you'll work out what is the ideal or maximum. So the maximum carrying capacity is not generally the ideal carrying capacity. And then what happens from there is you'll have a game count. And say, for example, a lot of the private reserves have a lot of water that shouldn't be there. It's in man-made water holes, dams, pump pans, etc. like that. And in a closed system, that can be very problematic because what that does is it stops the animals moving. And hoof action is very, very important for the spreading of grass seeds and causing grass to grow. So what happens is that the hoof action then gets too much around said water points, and it actually damages the soils and the grass doesn't grow around there. So you've got to be very careful how you manage your water. And then, oh, the starling just landed behind me there. And then which a lot of people don't like to have, there's culling. So, for example, even with the lions, the natural occurring leopard, cheetah, wild dog, etc., on reef rate, for example, there's still a set number of animals that need to be shot a year, and that is to just maintain the balance, so the impala don't become too many, or the giraffe don't become too many, or the wildebeest, or it doesn't matter what species, and the same would go for the lions. However, with things like lions and stuff, they would be traded, they obviously wouldn't be shot. VM and I put that up ourselves. That was quite scary. It's a very high roof. That's our internet connection. Well, our old internet connection. Now we've got a new one. But so it's actually quite a complicated process, and a lot of those animal numbers will vary on years. So in a drought year, obviously things like grazers and stuff like that, you would probably have to take off more. Now, another question a lot of people say, why don't you catch them and move them? Often it's not financially viable to catch and move animals, and a lot of reserves that are in what we call the buffer zone. So there's the red line, which is the road between the Greater Kruger and so areas that are open to Greater Kruger and the rest. And and we're in the buffer zone, so you can't actually sell animals out of the buffer zone to the rest of the country due to foot and mouth and diseases and stuff like that. So it is a bit of a problem. So unfortunately, those animals will generally be culled. It's done at night with a spotlight, and you'd go out and sort of shoot 50 impala in a night. Then those impala would be processed by a butchery, and then the meat would be sold, and the revenue, of course, goes back into the reserve. So it can be quite a complicated process. Now, let's see what else we got here. Aren't you approaching winter? Will it help the animals since it won't be so hot? From Cookie. Cookie, we are. It's actually one of my favorite times of the year because, let's take a look. The combretums are starting to change, and I can't wait. We're going to go, as soon as we got the badger up and running, we're going to go fly the drone. But you can just see the colors, the yellows and greens now at this time of the year as the season changes. JB, thanks for the in-depth answer. Can endangered and protected animals be legally culled as well? Yes. So it's a quite a controversial discussion, but yes, endangered animals, certain endangered animals and whatnot can be hunted, culled legally. Now, one of the things that is very different from South Africa compared to the rest of Africa, and actually quite a lot of parts of the world, is that in South Africa, you can own an animal. I can own a rhino, I can own an impala, it is mine. And if someone steals it, I can take them to the police. Or if someone shoots it, poaches it, I can take them to the police because that animal is mine. Therefore, as the owner of a rhino or whatnot, you can legally hunt it or etc. Now, I'm not going to go into too much depth because I've still got to bunch of paperwork to do this afternoon, and we will have this conversation on Patreon at a later stage, and it is a much longer conversation. But as I said, I've still got a bit of work to do today, and hopefully we can get that done quite quickly. So I did promise you we were going to release something special in this live Patreon chat. Now, many of you will remember the episode, The Scorpions of Leadwood. Now, of course, we've just got to be careful. It's quite a dangerous one. So, I don't know how well you guys can see there. There is a Parabrethus transvalicus, the most venomous scorpion in this part of the world, and the only one that is actually highly dangerous to people, but only if you're old or very young. Now, this is a particularly big one, and it is a male, but it is her. We've finished filming with it, and now remember, all our scorpions are rescued from people's houses because they were going to kill them. So you'll get to be here for the release of the Parabrethus transvalicus. It is quite a big one, but they can get bigger. Hang on, it came very close to my finger there. Sorry. Yeah, you got to be careful with these guys. Okay, let me try and get this again. It was actually quite funny. The other night we had some friends around, and they've all got little kids, and all our scorpions at the moment are living in ice cream containers. So we had to actually, before the kids arrived, we thought, oh bugger, we better really move these things out of kids' reach, because I mean, children, ice cream, open it up, and instead of finding ice cream, you find a highly venomous scorpion. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm gonna just chuck them out. Oopsie. You are free now. No, don't go hide under your water hole, your drinking trough. Okay, normally what happens when we release them is they just sit for a little bit and then they scuttle off. I might have to help them. I don't want them to sit out here in the open. I've released it out in the open just so I could show you guys, but you don't want to leave them out in the open, otherwise you'll get eaten by a hornbill. Come on, time to move. There we go. So you can see how quickly they move, these transvalicus. They're incredibly efficient hunters. So what he's going to do is going to head into this brush pile up ahead, and that's where they like to look. Oh, see, I told you, got to watch out for the hornbills. There you go. They're very relaxed here, the hornbills. Say hello, hornbill. Leave the scorpion alone. Oh, scorpion's gone. So he's disappeared into that nice thick brush pile there. There's some holes, and you didn't get a free meal. Yeah, yellow-billed hornbill. Okay, guys, it's been great to do our first ever chat for our patrons. And as I said, these will be coming quite regularly. We will schedule them. Vim and I will figure out a better way to make sure you guys don't miss out. And also, please give us feedback. If this sort of time doesn't work for you, depending, where you are in the world, you can always, what happened? You can always feed back to us and let us know if there's a better and better time. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to doing some paperwork, unfortunately.